Thank you so much. It's good to be back. And let's get started tonight. Some very interesting stories for us to chew tonight. Let's make a quick stop in Edo State. The crisis rocking the Edo State House of Assembly still rages. Today, 14 members elect of the Assembly who are yet to be sworn in are asking President Muhammadu Buhari to fulfill his promise of resolving the legislative impasse in the state, saying the time to act is now as the state governor. According to them, Mr. Godwin Obaseki has crossed the red line and now a threat to democracy. Those are their words. Addressing a news conference in Abuja, the spokesperson of the group, Mr. Washington Osifo, says there is an urgent need for President Buhari's intervention in order to avert a breakdown of law and order. Let's now move to our major conversation for tonight. And this perhaps, if you are working as a civil servant in any state of the federation, this concerns you. It's very important for you about the minimum wage. Take a seat, everyone, and listen to this. There is a minimum wage, yes, and that is 30,000 naira, yes. The labor unions and the federal government have agreed, and that is also confirmed, yes. An imminent workers' industrial action was averted, that's a fact. But there might be some buts in the matter, and it is in the capacity of states to pay these monies. The resolution on the minimum wage consequential adjustment may mean good news for federal civil servants. The fate of their counterparts in the states now hang on a balance. As the Nigeria Governors Forum says, payment would be determined by each state. Today, after the meeting of the governors in Abuja, the chairman of the forum, Mr. Kayode Fayemi, says governors are ready to comply with the 30,000 naira minimum wage as agreed by the tripartite negotiation committee, which also included the state, but they cannot be forced to comply with the consequential adjustment. According to him, payment will be determined majorly by the internally generated revenue of each state and the number of civil servants on their payroll. Take a listen to Governor Fayemi.
For us, we've always been clear, this was a national minimum wage increase, not a general minimum wage increase, general minimum wage review. So to that extent, we don't want the media to confuse issues. It's about a national minimum wage increase. And yes, that may necessitate consequential increments. We have no doubt about that. But that's a matter for the state to discuss with their workers. The best that the forum can do is stick to what has been agreed with states. States were part of the tripartite negotiations. States agreed to 30,000 naira minimum wage. But states also know that there will be consequential adjustments, but that will be determined by what happens on a state-by-state basis, because there are different number of workers at state level, there are different issues at state level. Every state has its own trade union, joint negotiating committee, and they will undertake these discussions with their state governments.
So what it then means is simple. The least paid person will get 30,000 at the bottom. So what it then means is that as you go up, there will be increase on the salary. So what it then means is that each state of the federation, according to Mr. Fayemi, if you get him right, is that some of these states will be able to pay based on their own pocket. What does this mean? Let's get to talking, everyone. I have joining me here in the studio, Mr. Asugwuni is a labor leader, the deputy president of the Nigeria Labour Congress. At the moment, is the acting national president of the Nigerian Labour Congress. He joins us in our Lagos studio. Thank you so much for joining us here today. And in our Abuja studio is an economist, a former presidential candidate, and national chairman of ANRP, Mr. Tope Fasua. Thank you so much for coming on tonight. Let me get your reaction, because this is perhaps the first time we are hearing from the governors, because that's even, in fact, the main deal, because I'm not sure you have as much problem with the federal government. Did you? What is your reaction to what the governor's stands are is on the the minimum wage?
Yeah, I think just a quick one. If I listen carefully to the Governor Forum chairman, I stand to say probably they are still referring to what we have in mind, because it is true that every state we have to engage the labor at the state level. What I don't want to get in the mind of people is as though governor will award the salary that they can pay. It's going to be a product of collective bargaining at the level of the state. The Joint Negotiating Council and the state government will actually look at the agreement we have reached at the federal level, using it as a guide to also produce their own table at the state level. And for me, it's a product of collective bargaining, not necessarily subjected to internal generated revenue or what we can pay.
So labor has realized that not all fingers are equal. What Lagos can pay, perhaps a Zamfara or a Ekiti or a Kwara or Gombe may not be able to pay. You agree?
We agree that some states will pay higher. That is the understanding, and it has happened before. States are meant to pay higher than what we have agreed. You cannot, there's no way you make a salary the benchmark to be the apex. What we are saying is, this is the minimum. The consequential adjustment, don't forget that the federal government worker has been given certain percentage awarded or rather agreed upon his own existing salary today. That is to say, where a state is receiving lower, same percentage will not give the same figure. So we didn't go with a lump sum. We apply percentage on all. And we don't expect any state as well to do less, because that I consider as the minimum. Because even when you apply it on a lower salary, it will still give you a lower value. So we believe that the guiding principle so far is the consequential we have already established. And I believe most states are waiting for this table to actually assist them in their own implementation.
The reality is that some states are owing salaries as we speak.
Yes, that is
even
already
without the commencement of the payment of the 30,000 naira minimum wage.
Yes.
So you realize that some states may not be able to meet up with that burden. You realize?
The inability of state, or rather a governor in this case, the inability of a governor to place salary of workers as a priority will not be put as an excuse for not implementing the new wage. Because you ask me, or rather we put it to them now, why would the state fail in the payment of salary? And they have not failed in the payment of allowances that due them, neither their appointees. So when someone chooses to make the workers bear the brunt of their inabilities, labor will resist.
All right. There are some very interesting angles to this, which I want to bring you in, and which, of course, a lot of ASU and the others are already talking about some of these issues. Mr. Fasua, Wayne, you are an economist. This is your area of competence. Give us an understanding of the kind of situation some of these state governors or these states are in, because the wage burden of some of these states will double. For example, say they were paying 18,000 before, they are going to pay 30,000. You have your wage burden to be doubled. What is the consequence of what is going to happen to some of the states of the Federation?
Right, thank you. The labor leader there has actually spoken as much. I see, a perfect storm is brewing, and, the Nigerian state itself is heading for some sort of financial collision, fiscal cliff. If states cannot pay minimum wage at 18%, how will they then pay at 30%? Big question. Some of them are owing for more than a year or two, or some of them have been paying 50%, 70%, and so on. Perfect storm, because you'd ask yourself, how are we saying that the workers don't deserve increases in wages? Of course they do. If you look at inflation between 2010 and to date, when the wages were last increased, the 2010, 2011, when they were last increased to date, the compounded inflation is over 70%. Sometimes I begin to question economics as known in this country, because I wonder how people are surviving if 70% of the value of their money has eroded. But here we are, actually also contending whether, in fact, whether they should have the minimum wage or not, or what happens to the consequential adjustment and so on and so forth. So this is what you get. I mean, of course, we know that, well, the governors may plead, say the states don't have money, but the people are also seeing that the governors are living large. I mean, if you put your convoy on the road and the convoy is worth 1 billion or 2 billion naira alone, and they see that your skin is getting fresher. Nigeria is one place where people get into government and they begin to look very rotund, and they see that you are always abroad and all of that, then of course the people are, you know, entitled to the demand for their own, at least, because again, Nigeria is like the biblical kingdom of heaven. The violent take it by force. And so that's what we're seeing right now. So we're several. However, there are also some gray areas. Number one, how does the private sector
Fasua,
cope?
sorry, before
Apart
you
from
break them down,
apart
sorry,
from,
sorry, before you break them down, let me, apologies to Botin. We'll go on a break, but I want you also to look at this. The consequences of those who are owing, the state that are owing, and now when they are going to pay, the consequences, the issues of the revenue, the issues of IGR, and how we can get out of this conundrum. I want you to weigh in on that when we come back from this break. Don't go anywhere. The labor leader is here, an economics expert is there, and we're looking at minimum wage and the state government. How viable? We'll talk about this when we return from the break. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us on the program. And the matter for conversation tonight is about minimum wage. The agreement has been made. And the issue now is about the consequences of the rise in the cadre of the payments to be gotten. If you look at the grade levels there, as it's been agreed by the Labour and the federal government, the negotiation went on, and we're breaking it down for you, the consequences of some of these issues. Mr. Amechi Asugwuni is the deputy president, presently the acting president of the Nigerian Labour Congress. He's in our Lagos studio, and from our Abuja studio, he's the presidential candidate and the national chairman of ANRP, and also an economist. Thank you so much, Mr. Fasua, for joining us. There is a recent report, Mr. Fasua, which says that out of the 36 states of the Federation, that 20 states in Nigeria are owing workers and pensioners salaries and entitlement ranging from 1 to 36 months. And that report was a survey that was released by Budget. In that report, it shows there were degrees of how they are being owed, local government salary, state workers and all of that, pensioners and arrears. So backlog of some of these salaries. And we are looking at paying almost double of some of this money. So give us a sense of what this then means. If you're a state governor, Mr. Fasua, and you are perhaps one of the states that is receiving the least in the federal allocation, and you are generating maybe below 1 billion as your IGR, what kind of conundrum have you found yourself?
when I was contesting for presidency, people asked me, why don't I go for state governorship? I told them very clearly, I know that there's more problems at that level than at the presidency. I think it is in bold relief. I've never seen one state governor in this country, at least in the last 19 years or thereabout, that have come out unscathed, that the people will say, oh, this guy did well. Not even Fashola, people drag him these days. We know what's going on with Ambode and co. You know, Sanwo-Olu is already been mocked. And Lagos is supposed to be the best performing state in Nigeria. Where else can we point to? Not even Kaduna State. Already, that's what I said. I said we're set up for a perfect storm. Most of the states, some of them are still owing the intervention funds they got from government. I even criticized even the idea of a Paris Club payment that was made to them, because that payment was fraud. Some people went out and made it look like Paris Club was giving us money. Paris Club didn't give us any money. These were monies that were paid. They were claimed that the federal government deducted too much from their allocation way back in maybe in 2006 under Obasanjo, when we were repaying the Paris Club fund loans. Okay, but the point then becomes, okay, when this, or even over time since the 1980s, when those monies were deducted, how many of the states were around? And should we also be refunding you, given the fact that I have a list of the loans that we were owing in this country? the multilateral loans and so on that we were owing in this country as at 2005-6 before they were written off. Some of them were bogus loans in all of the states of this federation collected by politicians, especially in the Second Republic, for different kind of projects, including on the ground project, including metro project, including all sorts of things that were never done. And those are the things that we paid them Paris Club refund on. And what happened to that? We heard that some governors used theirs to build hotels. We heard that a lot of them, of course, the payment of salary that it was meant to be used for were never done. So that's the thing. I mean, so the point is people want to become state governors. They don't think forward to know, okay, how am I going to do it when I get there? You get there and then you're faced with a conundrum. So the whole idea of running for state governors in this country, for governorship in this country, is just egocentric. Okay, we want to go there and show that if you really want to solve the problems of this country, you have to take it from the national. A new ethos has to come and has to be driven from the center. That, look, this is how we're going to go forward. But we haven't seen that now, unfortunately. Because again, like I said earlier on, the people are seeing that the politicians seem to be enjoying, whether they're enjoying or not, it's a different ballgame, but they have access to money. And of course, the people that are closest to the funds, they get it and grab it first. And then they grab it. I mean, the guys in the National Assembly are taking their own as well. Over 150 billion their budget and so on. So that's what you see.
Yeah. So
yes.
let me come back to our Lagos studio. That survey that I quoted earlier on said that in 2007, there's several states have not paid their worker salaries in 2017, and they are owing at least 4 months' salary. So now the question now is of those who are owing, the backlog, and the reality of paying. They should have started paying since April, isn't it? What's the reality for labor in some of these issues, especially those states that are owing? Are you aware of states that are owing?
Yeah, I think the issue of backlog at the state level is no longer a news, but as a matter of commitment on the side of labor, we are doing everything possible to ensure that those governors are not just compared, but are made to realize their obligation. You know, it's a problem that people actually fail in that capacity of realizing what is needful in terms of salary, compensation for work done, meaning I have put in my best to get paid.
But some
it's
of
not
them
awarded.
Not paid, and nothing has happened.
No, the question is the engagement we use, because some of these things, our interest also is to ensure that we don't cramp this country. Because if you go by the norm that people just say, where you don't pay salary, you close down the state. Sometimes it doesn't work that way economically.
But if people are owing, the reality is that would they be able to pay if the salary is doubled?
No, when the salary, one thing that we must learn is ability to govern. Recommend and OZ that you must have ability to generate funds.
What would labor do now that the reality is now? Because we need to close down.
Yes.
What would labor do? The salaries will be almost doubled. Some people are owing the salaries. What would you do? That's double burden.
Yes, it's a burden to those that have not realized what to do. As a governor, we have recommended that they must go outside ready-made money. Government must learn to utilize their internal resources. Because there must be a framework.
All right.
So labor must engage those states that are owing and ensure that where they fail to comply, we will also engage other actions to ensure that that is also complied to.
We need to go now, but Mr. Fasua, just in about 20 seconds, what is the way out? If you must say in one sentence, the way out.
No. Sorry, Sheon, I'll just quickly say that, number one, there are three conundrums. Number one, what do private sector players do? They don't have access to free money like government, especially the small ones. Number two, it is true that every state cannot pay the same amount of salary. The cost of living in Lagos is different from Bauchi or wherever. Number three is that even within the same civil service, there are organizations that are paying 10, 20 times what the normal civil servant is. And there's no attempt to bridge the gap whatsoever. I think that's what government should chew on. Thanks.
Mr. Tokwe Fasua, an economist, former presidential candidate, and the national chairman of the NRP, thank you so much for coming on tonight on the program. And the acting president of the Nigerian Labour Congress, Mr. Amechi Asugwuni, thank you so much for coming on tonight on the program.
Welcome.
Well, that's our show for today. So it behoves on you, if you're a worker, to ask the tough question from your governor and your leaders, and also from the leaders also, to ensure that these monies are paid. It's a livelihood of some people. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Chiwon Kimale. Bye-bye.